It's stuck. Yay! All right, we're on. Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Witches and Wine. I am your hostess with the mostest, Lola Stardust, and this is my husband, Silenus Stardust, and this is the show where we talk about witchy things and we drink wine. Clink and drink. Clink and drink to you as well. All right, and clink and drink. We do a lot of clinking and drinking on this show, so yeah.
Hashtag.
Hashtag clink and drink. Okay, so before we get started with the show and talking to this beautiful woman that's sharing the screen with us, I'm going to turn it over to Silenus so he can tell us about the wine we're drinking tonight.
Hi, guys. So tonight, I chose us a very, very nice bottle of Syrah from here in Washington State. We're drinking a 2012 Gamache Vintners Syrah. Really rich, deep blackberry and spice notes. Smooth, elegant. If you find it on the market, you can expect to pay on the West Coast $30-35, back east $45-50. I highly recommend it if you're going to be serving a red meat dish with such as lamb or a really robust steak, especially if you like spice notes. Elegant, subtle, rich, the way a good Syrah should drink. So I'm going to go ahead and step out now, and I'm going to have our guest explain what she's drinking tonight, and we'll bring Isleen in to conduct the show from here on out.
So what are you drinking? Oh, now do you want to go by Luna, Rebecca?
Luna.
I almost
Luna for these things.
Luna? Okay. I almost said your name, and then I was like, okay. Hi. All right. Why don't you tell us what you're drinking, Luna?
I'm drinking the $6 Trader Joe's special. It is a Deo. It is a Spanish wine. And I just happened to have it open from the other night and in my fridge, and it's lovely for summertime. And out here, I'm currently in Ohio, and it is hot, and it is muggy, and I die every time I go outside.
So it's nice and cooling, and gives you a little buzz.
It's tart. It's tart and crisp, and I like
you.
Yeah, like me. I'm tart and crisp. Yeah. You know.
All right. So thank you. So, well, now we're gonna go ahead and hi, Isleen. When did you get here? My coven sister, Isleen. So we're gonna go ahead and introduce our guest, or actually have our guest introduce herself. So, hi, Luna. Why don't you tell us who you are and what you do and all that fun stuff?
Absolutely. I'm Luna. I go by Luna Eclipse. Luna has been a pen name of mine for a very long time, since I was a kid, and it just always worked really well for my magical name. I haven't always been a witch. I actually grew up in a Southern Baptist home. My dad was a preacher, which was interesting. So yeah, we were pretty devout. And then I went through trauma at 18. I was assaulted, and I didn't deal well with that at all. And it made me realize that the things that I was being taught didn't really apply to the things that I was seeing in the world. I went through a whole God is dead phase, and started reading up on things like Buddhism and studying meditation, and which eventually I started reading up on Hinduism and all sorts of other things. Got into paganism, and it was very a little too goddess-centric for me at first. Wounding going on, like feminine wounding, and so it took a while for me to work that out. But I liked paganism just on a sort of philosophical level, and also sort of like I knew what it would do psychologically to sort of like spells and all of that, and I liked that. I thought that I'm like, well, this makes sense. Clearly, look into this more. After a time, I started getting really into it. I dabbled for a while at that point in tarot and stuff, and then I started going hardcore into tarot and astrology, and now, I've been doing since about 2013 tarot. I've been a tarot reader. When I lived in Seattle, that was my only gig for a good long while. Tarot reading, doing Reiki, specifically Sacred Flames Reiki, which is chakra-based, and all sorts of other things, making sure my cat doesn't, it looked like he was going to, attack my candle. I'm like, do not do that. Oh, my God. He's really better than that, but his name is Loki, so you never know.
What do you expect?
I know.
We don't really.
You know what you're getting into when you name your cat or dog.
Yeah.
Or
And
if
we're
you
not crazy.
find out pretty quick.
We're not crazy about the smell of, burning pussy hair.
Me either. That sounds painful. Oh my god.
Burn the pussy hair.
You can just shave it.
So
I mean, you don't have to be so violent.
Cracked yourself up again.
I know I did. So this is why we love you. Just to let our viewers know, me and my husband met Luna at Spring Mysteries several years ago, and we just connected with her instantly. She is a student at the school, the seminary that you're going to. They're classmates.
We are in class. We're in class together.
Yeah, so we're all connected in that way. So it's awesome, and it's about time that we finally got you on the show. You've been talking to me about
first witch crush.
Yes, it was his. So we talked about this last week with Lawrence. Because Lawrence was a guest on our show. So this was his first ATC festival at the Spring Mysteries he went to, and it was my first Spring Mysteries, but I had been to Sickle before that. So this was all. He was like, wow, and he was still fairly new to the craft, and then we met you, and he's just like. He told me, he's like, I got a crush on Luna. I was like,
that's so cute. I love it.
Okay, we all do.
I have groupies. This makes me happy.
So,
Aww.
all right. So what we want to talk to you about is this wonderful topic is about Santa Muerte. See, I did it. Muerte. Thank you. This is my people. I should know this, but I'll have more wine and I'll be able to speak fluent Spanish. So, so first of all, could you tell us your altar back there? What have you got? What's going on? I love it.
I don't know how well you can see everything, but
you can point things out. We know it's just beautiful. It's
Santa Muerte. I have a Katrina over here that I picked up in Mexico City a long time ago.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to say an aspect of her because that's not using the word properly, but that's
wasn't that a previous not a previous, but she was known as that for a little while, kind of.
It was kind of like a face of her or an incarnation of her.
Yeah.
That way. I've got a whole lot of different potions and brews for her back here, actually. A lot of like bats and incenses and all sorts of things that I've made for her, nice. Which is great, candles and witchy things. But yeah, this one is my working Santa Muerte. I don't know if you can see her right here, but I got her. She's really dark, so I got her back in like.
Can you move her? Does she move towards the camera, or can you?
Not her. She actually took a tumble this week, and I had to put her back together.
Yeah.
Knocked her over and broke her, and so I've been trying to make her happy. But I'll actually show you. I have a few that are right here with me as well. This is my multicolored.
I love the.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice. Yeah.
It's not normally two things I would think of together.
It's great. That's amazing.
Yeah. So this has a lot of her different attributes all in this, and it's also been fixed at the bottom.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of a big deal.
The scythe, is that how you say it? Scythe? I always say it wrong. Scythe.
Yeah, and this is my car, Santa Muerte. I pulled her out of my car. She I drive. And then this one is my bedroom, Santa Muerte. And if you do enough work with Santa Muerte, you're going to have pretty much a Santa Muerte in every room.
Yeah, that's what it seems. I love it. Now she's very similar to. She has she's reminiscent of Grim Reaper.
Yes, and there was a Spanish. I forget the name of it now. Spanish Grim Reaper from Spain that I believe was a woman. I believe it's Spain. And they say that there might be some. Well, they say that there might be some. There's not actually technically similar roots, but it's interesting that kind of converged. And I started doing Santa Muerte work. I should just backtrack for a minute before I go into Santa Muerte's history. After I'd been doing tarot readings and lots of things, and I'd been really working hardcore with different deities, I hadn't really decided, I didn't figure I would ever choose a very specific deity that I would, be working with all the time that I would dedicate to. and I started living with Roman. I think you know Roman Delgado.
Yeah.
And so he's the one who introduced me to Santa Muerte. And so he comes from a line of like Mexican burritos. I think curanderos as well. You'd have to ask him. But and I think you should bring him on your podcast here.
We should.
Good. That's my little recommendation.
He just goes to the school.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he does now. Yeah, he's very knowledgeable about lots of things. But he taught me a lot about like traditional Mexican witchcraft, brujeria and things like that, which go hand in hand with Santa Muerte. And a lot of it is kind of similar to hoodoo. It is not the same, but it's got similar, things. And it
is kind of like Santeria a little bit.
Well, even has the Santeria influence, Yoruba influence with
they're all kind of organic in their own culture, and their cultures culturally specific.
Yeah.
But the way they've kind of come about are very similar in their fashion, so there are some similarities within that.
And I should say she absorbed a lot of it. That's the right way to put it.
Wasn't Santa Muerte originally? I thought it was a god, a male or a man, right?
No.
I heard that. No, okay. Maybe I read that somewhere else.
She was an Aztec, so her roots go like pre-Aztec actually.
Yeah.
It basically goes to like pre-Columbian Mesoamerican religion, and that ended up going into Aztec religion as well. And so she was Mictlan Cihuatl, and I'm probably pronouncing that awful because I am actually a gringa. And this is Aztec, not even Aztec. But she was Lady of the Dead, Queen of Mictlan, and Mictlan is the lowest of the underworlds. It is the northern realm of the dead. And her husband was Mictlan Tecutli, and he was king of Mictlan. And so that's kind of where we get that. And basically and so she definitely predates Aztec culture. And there are some people who debate whether or not she actually is Mictlan Cihuatl, and I do believe she is. I think that there's a lot of I'm not, a Mexican descendant or anything like that, but I think that there's a lot of people who are into brujeria and things like that, and into Santa Muerte worship. They will say that she is clearly, the next incarnation, I guess. She's like Madonna. She changes over the ages, but she always remains the same.
Yeah.
Like gives herself a facelift every so often. That's the best way to put it.
Go both ways, because I also thought of the Lady Madonna, Mother Mary Madonna, that one.
Madonna.
Yeah, that Madonna.
Like Our Lady of Guadalupe.
That Madonna.
That's kind of the whole point, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
It's Madonna.
It's Madonna.
She was also Aztec. That was Tonantzin. And I'm pronouncing that wrong too, but she was like the nurturing mother, mother of the earth, that sort of thing, mother of the gods.
Yeah.
And her celebration was actually each winter solstice. And Santa Muerte's, I'm not sure about traditionally, but I know that nowadays there's a time in I believe it's August 17th or something like that. That's the day. I've not really seen many people who worship her actually do that. But why not throw a party, right? That's what she's like, more wine, sure, more
drink. You can drink to partying with the death goddess.
Yeah, she loves a party. She's a party girl. But yeah, it's usually her feast day is usually Day of the Dead, so it would be the 2nd of November. But I usually pretty much that whole week. Like Day of the Dead and Halloween, I'm just like constantly doing things for her and celebrating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, how long have you been following her and working with her and whatnot?
Let's see. Officially, I have been dedicated to her for 2 years, and I'm like thinking. So she kind of just entered my life and she's very persistent in a very gentle sort of way.
Yeah.
She showed up and was very, she showed up and she was very clear that she wanted to work with me. And I was, and like, I want to be, I want us to work together, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Why not? And and I would work with her, but I was a little leery because I didn't know enough about her. I wasn't sure. I could tell that there was some stuff underneath the surface, and I'm like, there are expectations here that I don't understand yet, and so I don't feel comfortable, diving right in. And so it took a little bit of wooing, I should say, before I'm finally it just was clear that, like, wow, this is my deity. This is who I need to be with, and she needs to be my patroness, and like, and that's what she'd wanted all along. And so then I had the problem of, I am a gringa and I don't have any intention of culturally appropriating anything.
I was going to ask if that was a concern of yours. Yeah.
It was a huge concern, and it had me delay actually working with her on like that patroness level. And so like I didn't actually dedicate myself to her for a little while. It worked out perfectly, but like I had to talk with Ramon about it a little bit. I had to like discuss, it's, and basically with all the gods, and especially with her, because she is like, Madonna, always reinventing herself. And there's like a path through the ages that I can kind of walk you through, but that she's taken. But yeah, I mean, like currently she is the fastest growing religious cult, religious organization.
Yeah.
World.
The Catholic Church has a whole like page saying don't work with this.
Don't work with her.
She's not a. It's so funny.
Yeah,
like,
they do.
Terrifying. Oh my God.
They really, they are like, they try to like disassociate themselves.
Stop the good things
but
when the good things around.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And so like I've heard like, and it's really hard, and this is the part of cultural appropriation that we want to be real careful about. When you work with a deity that's not from, say, a lot of the different, and even the pantheons that are in like Eurocentric traditions, even those don't necessarily cross perfectly or cross well sometimes together. There's not always an overlap, and even when they are, even when you're talking Roman and Greek, the two deities that are basically the same are still different slightly.
Like the same like this.
Yeah.
Right. They're actually different wavelengths, but they're close enough. If you haven't really connected to the energy of the wavelengths, if you don't understand how to do that, you might mistake them for the same thing. But they're really not. And so even more so with indigenous deities. And so it's really important that if you work with Santa Muerte, you must respect her roots and her people. Her people are the Mexican people. Her people are the people of Central America. And, the thing that's going on at our borders right now, it absolutely breaks her heart. Yeah. And if you don't have a heart for that, then you can't work with her. She will not open to you. That's just hands down. She might be able to soften your heart, but if you won't open to her people and care about her people are the downtrodden, the people that society has cast away. So part of that is her people, but that's also homeless people. That's also, anyone who's downtrodden. And if you can't have a heart for them, then you can't work with her. One of the things that she pressed upon me pretty early, and I think it was actually before I actually decided to dedicate to her, was I give so much money every payday, or every time I'm able or whatever. And so it goes to her, and that gets given to homeless people. And so when I was in Seattle, that was really easy. You just walk out and you're able to like, she'll tell me on the pendulum, this is the right person, give them so much of it or all of it or whatever. And or, here it's a little harder. And so I usually donate it to one of the places around here that help the homeless. That's important. That's going to be part of what you do with her. And if you don't have a heart for that, you won't be able to work with her. Just hands down. But moving on from that, I started working with her probably, I would say, about 2013 or 2014. I met Ramon in 2013, and he was always talking about her and always, suggesting I work with her, and she wants to work with you and things like this. And so I worked with her for quite a while, and I've been dedicated to her for like 2 years now. I dedicated to her on her feast day on the 2nd of November. And so it was a really big deal. And I did it as close to what you would, I self-initiated, but I did it as close to what you would have been able to do it. There were elements there that were important. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Silence has a question.
How long did it take you to research to find the appropriate way to dedicate to her?
Well, I asked Ramon. I mean, I researched too, but I had a lot of questions for Ramon, you know, and bless his heart, he put up with me. Oh.
That's awesome that he did. But
since then I've also taken an online class from a curandera, and I've done other things. I've been working her. She'll tell you what magic to work, and it's interesting because she'll start telling you do this, do that, and then you read up and you're like, oh, that's what we're doing. Okay. Yeah, and so she will teach you, and she loves everyone. She is the mother of all, and so there's actually an Aztec origin story, I guess you could call it, with her and her husband, where the gods come down to Mictlan. They descend to Mictlan, I believe it was Quetzalcoatl, at the dawning of the fifth sun, which was this era, because there have been 4 other eras before where the universe and humans lived, and broke her heart. She was the keeper of the bones, essentially.
Okay,
yeah, and they wanted to come down, and the bones were basically seeds, if that makes sense. They're human seeds, and so you think about planting the bones in the earth. Well, that was actually to help, it'll replant, and humans will prosper again. But she was our mother. She was the keeper of the bones. She cared so much about humanity, about the bones. She wasn't going to let them take it, and she fiercely defended the bones. And it was only when they said, we want to just borrow these, and her deal was, I will go and collect them. You will not collect them. I will collect them. I will take them back to Mictlan. I will bring them, to the world. So basically, she's the one that allows us life, and she's the one that comes and greets us upon our death. And so it's actually a very sacred thing. And the Mesoamerican, the ancient people actually had a pretty extreme reverence towards death. And so she's literally the personification of death.
Yeah.
It's like she is not, she's all the aspects of death gods and all that, but more. And so if you start talking about, oh, she's like Persephone, she'll just laugh at you and be like, oh, honey, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, dedicated to Persephone. So when I was going to the workshops and stuff, and I could see some parallels there, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same, but I could see some parallels.
Well, it's like when I was said before we started recording the similarities I found with her and Hecate, but it doesn't mean it's like she's exactly. It's just there's similarities.
Yeah.
But I think that's what draws people like us who do like the darker goddesses, who do like the goddesses that deal with death. Of course we're going to be drawn to her, to Santa Muerte. I mean,
it's a similar enough energy to where you can recognize that and like kind of tip your hat and be like,
yep,
I see you.
I see you. I've seen
it's the understanding of things. And so as long as we're not putting our own ideas onto what she is, if we're just using our own, what we've been taught, as Eurocentric peoples or whatever, or just coming from Eurocentric paganism, if we take what we've been taught and say, oh, okay, so it's kind of like this and kind of like this, and she'll just keep teaching you, it's also kind of like this, and it's also
exactly
this. And like we don't necessarily have the same ideas that, say, the native people of Mexico would have been taught. And so she is literally death in all of everything. She is the incarnation of death. She's a karmic deity. Like, she has a lot of Saturnian influences, a lot of Plutonian influences. She's a deity of literally the underworld. Oh, what is this? Is this a Santa Muerte pillow?
Okay, so I told you I come from, my mother's Mexican. Now, it's not really her, but I mean, you will appreciate this pillow.
Oh, so that's kind of like the Katrina.
Yeah, my mother got this for me. So
that's beautiful. And so like it kind of goes back to where she came from, I guess. Like after the Aztecs and then the Catholics came in, the Spanish came in, they tried to erase her with Catholicism. A lot of the other deities were able to be absorbed into Catholicism, not her, but her veneration continued. And in the 1700s, was the first time the La Santísima Muerte or Santa Muerte was recorded in the annals of the church and also the Inquisition. And that's how we know about her. That was like one of the first recorded instances of her in her modern sort of name. And also kind of in her, she was a skeleton, and they were like leading her through the street and beating her, demanding that whatever they were asking for be done, which is not an aspect. Today you'll see that where maybe they'll punish Santa Muerte by turning her around or covering her up on her altar. I personally don't do that, but I also can't say anything about the people who do, because that is part of her practice, almost like how you would work with a daemon or something, or someone that you were calling up, like things of like the Goetia and things like that. Beginning of the 20th century, one of her faces was the La Catrina, which is what you were kind of showing, which is the skeleton dressed in fancy clothing of the period. And it basically was a and she was already established at this point. So I just want to say it was kind of like an additional aspect, I guess, of her, a facade or something of her. It was basically showing the divide between the people who had and the people who did not have. And so essentially it's like death is a universal construct that allows for fundamental equality, and it's death is coming for you. It doesn't matter if you have all the money or if you have nothing. It doesn't make you better than me if you have, a lot of money. It was the idea. It was like a political movement of sorts. And so and Day of the Dead was also something that was going on. And then modern Santa Muerte practices were definitely observed in the 1940s through 60s. And I was
going to say the 40s she started to come back.
And we have the church in Tepito in the 2000s. And a lot of the cartels in the 90s, you would see like they'd raid the homes and they'd have, all these things of Santa Muerte. And that's actually a fascinating thing about her. She will literally accept anybody who comes to her. She doesn't care who you are, because you're her children. We're all her children. She loves us all. And that's the aspect of karma that people can't understand when it comes with Santa Muerte. And I'm using karma in a different way than what we normally would. So again, things don't necessarily overlap. But the idea of karma that she's shown me is she's in control of all of the strings. She gets to decide. It's not up to us. That person may have been awful, but now they get to decide what they want to do. And
she levels the playing field for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And she gives you just enough rope that you can either hang yourself or go pull yourself out of the hole,
I read somewhere where you're talking about the strings. I read somewhere that her scythe used to be also, they would imagine her cutting the strings of life and whatnot. That was kind of that thing. And
wonder how much of that is overlap, because you have like the fates, right? And
that's what I thought of is the fates.
Curious about that.
But
I don't think it's overlapping, but I think that it's a similar construct, except she literally will reap your soul. Like she gets to take you back home with her. Well, what I want to... You've ever seen Death in the Sandman comics?
Yeah. Oh my God, yes. I love her. She's my favorite. Too. Of course. We like Death in the Sandman comics. Big surprise. Like
that's definitely a sort of aspect of her as well. Yeah. She's much more than that, but that's one of her faces.
Yes. There's a certain ambivalence at times, but I think death gods and goddesses have to have that in order to be, because that's that kind of deity.
It's a survival mechanism.
I guess in a way. So. Yeah, but the death.
But they're beyond that.
But the thing is, they also have heart, and there's this side that people. I feel like people who get past the look of the skeleton, because it's if you're just on a mundane everyday level, like if we witches love eerie scary things, so of course, but just your muggles out there that are going to look at these Day of the Dead skulls and whatnot, of course they've made them all cute and mainstream now, but I mean it was very much about just the flesh or just the bones of the bones of the pretty much just getting to the bones of it. And it's not always it didn't start off pretty and cute and cartoony, but I think you have to get past that to know that there is a deeper level of like you said, children. We are their children, and they want us to be protected, but they also let us know and understand that death does come for all of us.
Right.
And working with those kinds of gods and goddesses makes death not as scary.
Right. And it's supposed to scare you, though. Like the skeletons, they are supposed to scare you.
Yeah,
They're supposed to kind of like put a sobering aspect on it. But on the other hand, there's a duality here. Like she is a party girl. She wants you to have a good life. Like that's the whole point of veneration to La Santísima Muerte. She wants you to have a good life. She wants you to have a good death. A good death comes for someone who's had a good life.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, you have lived to a lot of people view death as a honor.
Right.
To die is an honor because it means that you've lived your life and now it's time to move on to whatever is after death. But I wanted to, before we start running on time, I wanted to talk
seriously, but don't take it too seriously.
Yes, exactly. So I want to talk about the Rosary and how you work with that in your workings.
Absolutely. So Santa Muerte Rosary is there are several aspects of Santa Muerte work that you should know if you're doing Santa Muerte magic at all. One of those is a novena, which is like a 9, and I talk about this in my Santa Muerte Rosary. I do a class in real life and I do a workshop on the sim, which is like online on Second Life.
For those
right. I've done other classes just on her. I have one on my website, and I have class notes on my website for my real world class too. So like, there's all sorts of things that I do with her. But like some of the things you need to be able to learn how to do a novena, which is like a hardcore type of prayer. You need to learn how to like if you understand aspects of Catholicism and Hoodoo, you're going to do just fine because you'll understand how to make your voice, your God voice, as I call it, how to write petitions properly, how to pray, why we do prayers this way versus that way. And I talk about all that in my classes, and I'm looking at writing a book about all this, putting all the classes together and all of that.
That's going to be awesome.
Online classes and things. So like on demand. But yeah, you need to learn how to do that. You need to know how to do the limpia, which is like where you take an egg and basically it's like a cleansing ritual. You need to know how to do cleansing baths, and you definitely need to know how to work the magical rosary. So that's one of the most important things, and it not only feeds her, it's like a spiritual energy that literally feeds her, but it's also a meditation with her. When you start doing these rosaries, and this is just a traditional Catholic rosary with like Santa Muerte on it, which is
so pretty.
This is my car rosary. It hangs on my rearview mirror, and when I'm driving long distances, I'll just start praying her rosary while I'm driving.
Yeah. Of course.
Right. And this is one that Roman actually gave me, and that's more like a Mexican style. Gorgeous. Again, it's just a Catholic one. You can also do this with like the finger type rosaries. Yep. I love the finger rosaries. She's got like little rosaries of her own, like that's a Santa Muerte charm.
Yeah. I like the colors.
Rosaries. Yes, her colors are black, red, and white, her main colors. Although she's got like a rainbow of colors.
Black, red, and white.
There's a reason that shows. I mean,
right.
That wasn't something that was designed. Like we didn't have cross cultures there, but like clearly that's something that a lot of cultures.
There's a common thread.
Yeah,
there's
there we
go.
Yep.
Which is neat. They don't necessarily mean the same things, but the thread is
still. It means it's important. Pay attention.
Pay attention, yeah.
And so like these rosaries that are wrist rosaries, they often you just wear them and they'll double as protection and other things.
Those are cute. I like those.
I made some of the knotted ones. Because I also made I made a mala. Crochet mala.
Yeah.
It's a half mala, because if I did all 108 beads, it would have been like this long.
Right.
But it's a half mala, so it's got the 54 or something. I don't remember how many beads it has on it, but I was thinking about making something for that, because you talk about the rosaries in the Santa Muerte workshop.
Absolutely. And I'll just tell you real fast, and you probably know because I know you've been at a couple of my workshops on the sim. The rosary itself, if you leave out the dangly part at the bottom and just pray twice around, this three-way connector bead is the beginning and the end, but otherwise you don't use it. It's just the guru bead.
Yeah, it's just your guru.
Yeah, pray this part 2 times around. That's a traditional mala. It'll be 108 beads, and that's something that we learn, and we do malas in my classes and workshops.
Oh, that means that my half mala would totally work for except for but I could just make something up.
We made in the Hecate class at the seminary that Jack Grail taught. He had us make, or it was for extra credit. Had us make a Hecate kind of prayer beads or a rosary.
Nice.
So yeah, I think you've seen Dee's, haven't you, that she made?
I have not. I've seen her.
The three-headed dog. But yeah, you should look at her Hecate rosary. It's really cute. I didn't make it because I'm not crafty.
What was the number of beads for each? Did you do them like
can't remember. I would have to look back on my assignment and take a look. So yeah.
Because like a traditional Catholic rosary, this is what she likes to use, but Santa Muerte's numbers are 7, 5, 7, 9, and 13. Usually, it depends on what you're going for, I suppose. But what you do, you'd start off with your opening prayer here, which is for this one, O la Santísima Muerte. Fill the hearts of your faithful, kindle in them the fire of your love, send forth your spirit to renew the face of the earth. And then you pray our Santa Muerte here. These 3 beads, these are all kind of like your warm-up beads to get to the main event.
Your warm-up beads. It's the warm-up band.
Yeah, right.
The opening act.
I can think of another word, but I'm not going to say it.
The foreplay.
Yes!
I always say it for her, so. Clink and drink, the foreplay on the rosary.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And this, my dears, is why we're going to hell, but we'll be welcomed with open arms and we will be with our people.
Yes.
It'll be great. This is going to be the glory bees here, and then you have your first mystery, and then you pray 10 beads. And so this, I like to mix it up. And so like the one that I found that I really love doing, I found pieces of it online and put it together, and it follows the Catholic rosary pretty well, but I'm starting to develop my own, which has different mysteries. But yeah, one of the ones, and you had actually said it, the first mystery is La Santísima Muerte receives her scythe, which she uses to cut the thread of life.
Oh, well, look at that. We didn't plan that. We didn't plan that.
She's whispering.
Woohoo! That's
like
a
one. Clink and drink.
Clink and drink for
clink.
Clink. Wait, there we go. Clink and drink.
So yeah, and then you pray, and there's many things. You can do petitions on this. You can do the Hail La Santísima Muerte prayer, and then you just keep doing that 5 times until you're all the way to the end, and then that's the Hail the Santísima, Hail Holy Queen of the Underworld. That's the last prayer, and that helps ground it down. And that's like the basic structure that I like to teach, but there's a lot more to it. Like we talk about how to pray the novena on a rosary, which is not something that is traditional. So I'm taking some of her traditional practices and moving them to the rosary, and she really likes it. And it actually helps to focus you. We've done Reiki ideals and Ho'oponopono on the rosary. That was really good. There's a lot of connect, all sorts of mantras, and
Do you use the rosary for? You said it can be. It's meditative. It's to me, there's a rhythm that happens that gets you into that Zen kind of meditative state, that Zen state. So it doesn't surprise me that it's you can do meditation on it. But do you do spells with it, and what kind of spells are really good to use that kind of work?
So we've done all sorts of spells on it. It's great for petition magic, and I've taught that already. I have
what petition magic is for the
so like it's a type of spell. Essentially, it's like spell work, but it's like almost like you're demanding it, calling it down, calling down the energy of that to fill the room. Sometimes it can be like prayers, like please, almost like begging, if that makes sense. But you're not, because when you do this, you're working with the deity, and you're basically like, So the idea of pleading, or like, being prostrate on the ground, this is even in like the Abrahamic Bibles and things. It's a very powerful place that allows for a state of grace. And I talk about this, in my classes as well, where basically we realize that our cup is full, that we're trying so hard. But when you allow for a little bit of space in your cup, it allows for deity to help you, and deity flows in magic and power into your cup. And then it's co-creation. You don't actually have to try as hard as a lot of, and I don't mean that. I mean, yes, you should be doing your magic properly. You should be researching things properly. That's not what I mean. But a lot of times we feel like we have to fill the entire spell up with all of our personal energy, and that's not really going to get us anywhere. And so instead, if you're able to allow deity to fill it up, you're going to go a lot farther.
It's sort of like in a video, I don't remember which exact one it was, but Phyllis Curott talks about this, how you, like, if you need transportation, you make sure your spell is for transportation and not the red Lamborghini that you really want, because what might be best for you is to have a bike, because if you don't have a bike, you might end up with a heart attack. So what deity gets to fill in the gaps and be like, this is what's the best for everyone involved.
Yes.
That's definitely part of it. Yeah, that's definitely, there's a lot to it, actually. There's a lot more than is even just on the surface.
Yeah.
And so like when you do this, you're basically calling upon this energy as a standing in your ground as a creator, but also bringing that fire in from other places. But we've also used it for graveyard work. We've used it for necromancy, working with the dead, talking to dead relatives, healing.
Yeah,
you were there for that one. That's right. Yeah,
that one.
Healing and how to set boundaries with spirits. If you do any work with Santa Muerte, you're going to start doing necromancy. There's no way around it.
Kind of, duh. Like, no, not here, but I mean, right? I mean, if they haven't figured that out by now, maybe this isn't the path to be going down. I don't know.
Or maybe
I gotta work with necromancy. I mean, come on.
I can't work with death. I'm working with death.
Hilarious. But that also means crossing people over. Oh yeah, clink.
Clink and drink. We like to clink and drink because we like to drink.
Me too. I'm on any day with someone. Yes, this is brilliant. But yeah, she. Again, working with the dead is also part of working with Santa Muerte. And so, like, if the spirits need crossed over, you need to be able to offer that service to them. Yeah. If the spirits need healed or need direction, you need to be able to offer that service to them if you're able to. Like, that's part of all of this. There's a lot of energy exchange, and the more that you get into it, the more that she's going to expect out of you.
Yeah. Can you kind of touch upon real quick the reasoning behind this kind of belief? Like we talk about Santeria, we talk about voodoo, hoodoo, that kind. These kind of beliefs. Why it's important for them to have. We talked earlier before we started recording, having their saints involved and the Catholicism. Can you kind of go into why that's the combination? Because I find the combination absolutely beautiful and it makes perfect sense to me, only because of my background. Other people are like, that doesn't make sense. But for me, being of Hispanic descent, my Mexican mother and my Mexican grandmother, this was a normal sight to see, was the skeletons and the saints and the rosaries and the candles, and then doing some witchy shit over here, but going to church every Sunday to mass. So it was very, that's totally normal to me. But right. Why, can you explain why it's so important, why they mix that and how it works for those cultures and those beliefs?
Yeah, and like I am not like traditionally of Mexican descent, so I don't really know what saints are whom. I know some of them. I know that like the mother goddess I was talking about previously was actually Our Lady of Guadalupe. She merged into Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is like a face of Mary essentially.
Yeah.
And there was
it's the Mexican Mary.
She's
yes.
Yeah.
I love her.
Well, she's from
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
all the
It's in a
candles.
very specific place because it was on the shrine of, let me pull up the name of that of the mother goddess again. I can't remember. Tonantzin.
Yeah,
Pronouncing that at least decently. But she was the mother Aztec goddess, and her shrine was atop this one hill where they tore it down, put a church up there, and they started seeing visions of Mary, of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And the fun thing is, if you look at her, she's got a green cloak on, right? Our Lady of Guadalupe, which it harks back to the Mexican deity herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's basically the Mexican Aztec earth goddess, mother of all energy, that's been absorbed into Mary. And the interesting thing is, it's from these visions that people had on that hill that were quite possibly, again, deity comes at us in the way that we'll be able to see it. So a lot of times, like if people are you have to absorb, the Spanish are going to try to. The Inquisition happened, and that also carried over into the New World. And, the Portuguese and the Spanish, they both brought it over. And so the whole point is you have to figure out, how are you going to allow your religion to survive? Well, a lot of the indigenous people ended up saying, oh, okay, you want us to call it this? Oh, you want us to keep celebrate Mary and like on the 25th of, okay, fine. We were already celebrating the earth goddess.
Yeah.
On the 25th of December anyway, it's fine.
Yeah.
So they just combine it.
Yeah. I would know nothing of this other than just a little ping in my brain that Mary was typically wearing blue. I think so. The Guadalupe being green is just a little hint of it's not really her, but if that's what you're gonna call her, that's fine.
Yeah,
exactly. And so Santa Muerte works really well. Like there are some people, she generally wants altars all to herself. And she loves her effigy being everywhere. And like I said previously, if you work with her, you will probably have her in every room of your house. That's just how this works.
Yeah.
An altar especially if you're dedicated to her. If you're not, whatever. But if you're dedicated to her, just expect that she will literally be in every room, in your car, I have her on my ring.
Yes, I just want to be a part of your life.
So I can be a part of your death.
Yeah. Well, we're basically married, so like she's everywhere, and that's part of the deal, and that's just how she is. But she's really jovial. She's very nurturing. She's hilarious. Actually, she's perfect for witches and wine because like the types of things she says. Like you put Jesus on her altar, she's like, oh, the hunky man's coming to visit me today. Like she's a riot. Yeah, and you're like, really? Or like, you put her. I've heard her refer to her scythe is long, and so the whole point is, she can reach and reap anybody, but she's also referred to it as like in a pole dancing sort of aspect before, which is hilarious. She has no filter, and I'm just like, oh, it's brilliant. But she also will hand you your ass if you're doing something stupid.
She sounds like every Mexican elderly relative I've had in my life. My Mexican grandmother, my aunts, they were just the most fun, vibrant women, but they scared the shit out of us when we were in trouble.
That's her.
The Medea movies.
Yeah. Like Medea, she will kick your ass, but oh my God.
You want half? She gets half.
Well, I love this because it's so, speaks so personally to me. I remember when, I wish I could show you, but on the west side of my house, on the west wall here.
The west wing.
The west wing, yeah. Tiny. And we have a wall, and it's all I have a lot of my skulls, and then I've got a lot of my Mexican art that I brought back from New Mexico. And then if people have not noticed this, but they look behind my Day of the Dead dancing skull or skeletons, I've got holy water and a rosary. And Phil was like, I don't understand why you have this mixed in with all this. And I'm like, this is like what
you don't have to understand.
But it's,
yes, I do.
No, you don't. It's a
I actually got it
know better
from
than that.
wasn't it your grandma, Phil?
What are we talking about?
Phil? wasn't it your grandma that sent us that holy water and that rosary?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it was his grandma. When she passed away, she left the grandkids all. She was very, very Catholic, and she left them. She gave us holy water and a rosary and instructions on the end of days, how to survive end of days.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like
You
seriously.
have those little cards, like the saint cards with like the prayers on the back.
Yep,
Yes.
yep, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like all of that carries over into this. Like all of that, like anything Catholicism or saints or anything works perfect with Santa Muerte.
Yeah, and it's funny because when we got that, I'm like, ooh, I want the holy water and the rosary. Like I was just like, I'm thinking this. And Phil
I was weirded out.
He's like, you're a witch, and I go, but this is like.
I love my grandma, but I was
this is
weirded
what I
out by
grew
this.
up with. This is like, and I put it there with the skulls and everything, and I'm like, it fits perfect. I'm like, it goes together. Now he understands, but
It does.
it's like I don't.
In fact, the Bible works well there too. I mean, like, it's taken me a while to actually be able to like use that, but praying psalms is something that absolutely happens in Santa Muerte, traditional Santa Muerte worship. That's kind of part of it because it really overlaps. She's not recognized as a saint in the Catholic Church, but she
is the unofficial
saint.
Unofficial, yeah, they call her the narco saint, but like the narcos and the police also, both, try to work with her because she helps both groups, and she watches out for people in dangerous lines of work and people who work at night. And
I think that's fascinating that she's like venerated on both sides of the exact spectrum, like the cops and the people who are dealing the drugs. And they're just like, Santa Muerte, help me. And she's like, yes.
It's universal. Right. And she has a universal energy because, I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, she obviously is going to be a giver of life because she's a taker of life. So she's on those opposites is what she does. And so, of course, so why wouldn't you love, like, I have the pillow I showed you. I sleep with that pillow. I take that pillow to festival. It's almost like my teddy bear. And I love it. And some people would be like, God, that's, but I'm like, I love her so much.
Like the creepy stuff.
Yes.
Me too.
They like creepy stuff. Clink and drink.
Oh.
So pretty.
I know. That's why I'm drinking out of it.
Fantastic.
So, real quick, before we go, because we're coming up on 52 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I know. We could talk forever.
I could keep going. I'm like, I could still talk about all her colors, and like, I could just keep going forever. So, yeah.
And we're 3 hours ahead of us. So,
I
so
know.
are you.
Well, she said, I'm up late. Don't worry. She goes, I'll be in my true element drinking wine with you ladies. I'm like, yeah. So,
Well, how do we bring you back for another episode?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if there's this lady here has so when she came to me, viewers, I used to be in charge of the events at the Sacred Cauldron, which is in Second Life, which is the virtual campus of the seminary that we go to. And when she approached me about, I would love to do a workshop, and I'm like, okay, well, on what? And you, I love you so much, but you sent an email this long on all the topics. And I'm going, oh my God, oh yeah, that, no wait, oh yes that, no wait, no, oh yes that, and then we kind of came to this because I thought, well, I think this will fit in really well, and but she knows a lot of really cool stuff, and I would love for you to come back and talk about other cool stuff that you know about, and
we could totally do an episode just on divination with Pokemon cards.
Oh my God.
Magic the Gathering cards, yeah.
She does tarot readings with Pokemon cards. It's amazeballs.
Yeah.
You can drink to Pokemon Tarot. Pokemon. I just sounded like
Pokemon.
Hold on. Clink and drink to that. But look, in honor of this, tonight on my pants, I put on my Pokemon pants.
Yeah! Fantastic.
Speaking of you, your Pokemon.
Wait, your pants. Okay, did you just hear that?
The Pokemon tarot readings, not necessarily.
Just show me your Pokeballs and we'll be fine.
You probably shouldn't wear pants with the slogan, you gotta catch them all.
That was not what I meant, but that's funny.
All right. So, is there anything else you'd like to say or add that you feel is important? Because I don't want to offend Santa Muerte if she's speaking to you right now, saying, and tell them this.
Right. And I'm like, let's see. I have her cards here. I'm gonna let her give her message. How about that?
Yeah.
I'll let her tell you her message herself. It'll be good.
Let's get a
Yes.
message.
And this is her stuff. I love this deck. This is the collector's coffin box.
I know.
The Santa Muerte Tarot.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Babe, I need a new tarot deck.
I don't know if the coffin deck is out, but you can definitely get, because this was like a limited edition a few years back, but you can definitely get the regular tarot box of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But let's just see. They weren't shuffled since the last time I gave myself. I usually do this when I do my, I haven't been doing my.
I was like fascinated by that.
You're
like,
shuffling.
This switch back and forth.
That's because I read reversals. I
Yeah.
always do this.
I do too. I just did 3 clients today, and one of them was like, I don't do reversals. I go, well, I do, so
I
get used
do.
to it.
Have some fun
We'll
with
have
that.
some, yeah.
That's fantastic. But yeah, normally when I do my workings with her, if I'm not doing a novena, if I'm not doing a magical bath or anything like that, like a cleansing regimen, or any hardcore work, I'll just sit here. In a little while, I often have been doing it in my car. I've been spending a lot of time in my car, but I'll sit here, I'll light her incense, light up her candles. I do a lot of glass encased candle works with her, hoodoo style, essentially. But yeah, aside from that, you just pray the rosary and you do what you do. And then I like to pull 3 cards just to see what she has to tell me. But we communicate pretty well. I can usually hear her voice. She's really good at like downloading information a lot of time during a rosary.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so important to be doing your rosary practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically what she's saying is, if you want to move forward, the type of work that she does, she's really good at helping launch people into what, I don't want to say your destiny, because that sounds like it's been pre-written for you.
Yeah.
And that's not what I mean by that. Again, just like I don't mean karma that way. It's like she launches you into what you truly desire, and you get to co-create with her.
Yeah.
But she can definitely help you pick up the speed on that. She's also really good at bringing like it's the King of Pentacles here, and so it's like bringing that wealth, bringing that out of life. She's able to help you bring that down to earth.
Love that card.
I'll show you the Chariot. That was the one I was talking about a minute ago. Yeah, these cards are so beautiful. I just love
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Do you need a new tarot deck too?
Yes.
And she cares, again, here's like 7 of Cups, which is oftentimes about dreaming and getting like for real with your dream. She's basically like, you don't have to give up your dreams. You don't have to, you can still dream, and she can help you to manifest that. Again, this was the last card, actually, to manifest that the way that it's going to work in your life. As long as you're open to that state of grace, as long as you're open to the co-creation, she's there for you. So I think the only final things that I would say is, if you want to be a part of one of these workshops, unless you're in Ohio area, unfortunately, I'm no longer in Seattle. But yeah, if you're in the Ohio area, I know, right? Eventually, I want to move back when Seattle gets its act together, because that's home to me. But currently, I'm in like southwestern Ohio. And so if anyone's in that area, I teach classes on her once a month at the local OTO here. And you're more than welcome to check that out. That would be Sword and Serpent, I believe .org, but it's just look up Sword and Serpent OTO. You'll see the La Santísima Muerte class. I teach the workshop online, and that would be, how's the best way for them to find that out? Sacred Cauldron?
That would be,
Sacred Cauldron on Facebook?
Sacred Cauldron on Facebook, or Sacred Cauldron in Second Life. And we'll put links and stuff after the fact, so yeah.
Perfect. And then the other place you can find information is my personal website, which is lunaeclipse.com. Luna, Eclipse is spelled ECLYPSE.
Okay.
.com.
We'll put that in too.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Oh my God, this has been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
What?
Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, yes.
So
I
glad
miss
to
you
have
all.
Yes, we're going to have you back. So
Yep.
before we end, our viewers, if you have any questions about what we do, if you want to be a guest, please email us at
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
What was that again?
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
Thank you for joining us with this special guest, and remember to always walk with the goddess, be kind to one another, and until next time, blessed be. Bye, everybody. Bye. Thank you, Luna.
Thank you.
I gotta stop the recording, and then I'll hang up. So keep waving and smiling. Keep waving and smiling.